Ahoy there, pirates! Ready? Remember, the key to amazing writing is phenomenal reading. The more you read and read and read and read, the more you can take all those great ideas and push them into your own writing. So we are going to pirate read Stand Tall, Molly Lou Melon. What I want you to think about is, what gold can we mine for in this book? Now, this book is written by Patty Lovell, and it's illustrated by David Catrow. David Catrow, not my favorite illustrator, just because my own personal preference. Most of his drawings to me look kind of unseemly, is a nice word for maybe a synonym of ugly. And yet, I think he's a fantastic artist. It's just not my preference of art, but I think he does an amazing job. So he's the illustrator, and Patty Lovell wrote Stand Tall, Molly Lou Melon. And this is published by Scholastic. I love Scholastic. They just take my money, send me fabulous books that I can share with you. They line my shelves. I'd rather have books than food. I'd rather books than money. I love words. I love words so much. Stand Tall, Molly Lou Melon by Patty Lovell, illustrated by David Catrow. Molly Lou Melon stood just taller than her dog and was the shortest girl in the first grade. She didn't mind. Her grandma had told her, "Walk as proudly as you can, and the world will look up to you." That's some very good growth mindset advice. And so she did. Molly Lou Melon had buck teeth. Buck teeth are the teeth that kind of don't go flat. They kind of stick up like a donkey. Hey-aw. They stuck out so far, she could stack pennies on them. She didn't mind. Her grandma had told her, "Stand big and the world will smile right alongside you." Grandma has very good growth mindset advice. So, she did. Molly Lou Melon had a voice that sounded like a bullfrog being squeezed by a boa constrictor. She didn't mind. Her grandma had told her, "Sing out clear and strong, and the world will cry tears of joy." So, she did. Molly Lou Melon was often fumble-fingered. I mean, she drops a lot of stuff. Fumble, kind of fall over. She didn't mind. Her grandma had told her, "Believe in yourself and the world will believe in you too." So, she did. Then Molly Lou Melon moved to a new town. She had to say goodbye to her grandma and all of her friends. And start in a new school. On the first day of school, Ronald Durkin called her Shrimpo in gym class. When the game started, Molly Lou Melon caught the football, ran under the legs of Ronald Durkin, and scored a touchdown. All the children thought, "Wow, she's good." And Ronald Durkin felt very foolish. On the second day of school, Ronald Durkin called her Bucket-Tooth Beaver. Molly Lou Melon took out her pennies, stacked 10 high on her teeth, and smiled as big as day. All the children smiled with glee, and Ronald Durkin felt very foolish. On the third day of school, Ronald Durkin said, "You sound like a sick duck, honk honk." Molly Lou Melon sang out a quack, so clear and strong that it made Ronald Durkin somersault backwards, hit his head, and have to go to the nurse. All the children cried with joy to be free of Ronald Durkin for the rest of the afternoon. And Ronald Durkin felt very foolish. On the fourth day of school, Ronald Durkin said that she'd made the snowflake all wrong. But Molly Lou Melon opened up her paper and revealed the most beautiful snowflake of all. All the children oohed and awed, even Ronald. On the fifth day of school, Ronald Durkin brought Molly Lou Melon a stacking penny for her tooth and smiled at her. That night, Molly Lou Melon took out a pencil and paper and wrote a letter to her grandma. "Dear Grandma, I wanted to tell you that everything you told me was exactly right. Love, Molly Lou Melon." Wow, don't you love that story? The illustrations aside, at least for me, but they kind of grow on you. And the illustrations really did exemplify the whole story that the author wanted to convey. Molly Lou Melon is very different, and her grandma helped her see that different is okay. We're actually all very different. Mostly we want to be the same, but what makes us so special is how we're not the same, how we're different. And her grandma taught her how to value how special she was for being different. So in this book, one of the things that I loved is how the illustrations really, even though it's not my favorite illustrator, they really did exemplify the message that she looked awkward and sounded funny and did kind of silly things. But really it's a celebration of how special she was because she was different. And the big bug-eyed illustrations, they kind of helped me kind of feel first how she was different, and then second how her difference kind of made her really special. And I also noticed that the other children kind of watched and waited to see. They took what's called their cues from Molly Lou Melon. She started with self-love and didn't need anyone else to accept her. And because she loved herself and valued her differences, she didn't cry or fight that. She just accepted it. And she played to what's called her strengths by being okay with what was called her weaknesses. Now, what this book does for me a lot is pulls me into the superpowers, the superpowers for superheroes, super smarties, with respect to growth mindfulness. Now, the first superpower that I saw that she exemplified is superpower number 6, and that is resilience. We start out happy, then something happens to turn our mood and we don't feel quite so happy. Maybe we're angry, maybe we're sad, maybe we're frustrated, maybe we're overwhelmed. And if we stay in this place, we are not resilient. But when we have the capacity to spring back to being content and happy and settled and regulated, we have what's called resilience. And Molly Lou Melon in this book had tons of resilience. The other thing that I noticed that she had was growth mindfulness. Now, growth mindfulness is superpower number 1. Growth mindfulness is how we control our brain and how we control our mind. So the organ that controls what we think is what we control to make sure that we regulate our body by telling our brain, we're okay. Growth mindfulness, what it means to be growth mindful, is to be present, aware of self and others, and to believe in our own abilities and to develop capacity through attitude and effort. And that's exactly what she did here. So this is a great book for developing an awareness of what growth mindfulness is. With respect to resilience, what resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulty, to kind of spring back. And she had to move to a new place, leave her friends, leave her grandma, leave her home, leave her school, and rather than becoming totally overwhelmed by that, she embraced the change. So those are 2 really important, super important pieces of gold to mine for in this story. As an author today, one of the things that you can do is think about how your illustrations can communicate the feelings and really represent the characters in your narratives. What I noticed is in some of the books, they're very minimal with what they put in color and in detail, leaving a lot to our imagination. But in this book, David Catrow kind of explodes all over the page. That is a strategy that you can do as an illustrator. You can use it and replicate it today as an illustrator in your own story. Lots and lots of color, tons and tons of details. If you look all over it, there's just so much in every page. Every page, lots and lots of mixture of color too. Every page is covered and covered and covered. There isn't a square centimeter, meter, inch, half inch, anything that's not covered with color, except maybe this page. Now, one of the things I also liked was the use of onomatopoeia. We talked about that on another video. And here was how it was used. When Molly Lou made the snowflake, that was so amazing, and all the children oohed and awed. Remember, onomatopoeia is when you use words that sound like what they're describing. So we can feel how they were kind of amazed by what she created just by the language that's used. So onomatopoeia is another idea that you can use. This might have been a personal story by Patty Lovell. She may have had to move when she was little, and her grandma may have told her really powerful growth mindset quotes to help strengthen her sense of self. But she didn't tell this as if it were autobiographical, like it was her story, or biographical, telling it as if it were someone else's story. She told it as a fictional narrative. Remember, we talked about that before, how it's kind of a safe place to hide behind your own stories by building it into a character, something that really happened to you, that you maybe don't want to reveal that much of yourself, but you really do want to share your learning. One of the ways you can do it is make it into realistic fiction. That's a narrative. You could also make it your own true story. That would be an autobiography. So it's you telling your own story in first person, telling it about yourself in a narrative. So those are really great strategies that you can use today. I loved sharing this story with you, predominantly because growth mindfulness and the superpowers that allow us to build capacity internally and externally are very dear to my heart. But I also like reading because words are my favorite and children are my other favorite. Well, people. It doesn't just have to be children. Big children, the big people. So until we share another story on another video, here's lots of words and stories thrown at you. And some love for later. Sounds like my kids are exploding out there, so I think I better go. I better hurry because they're going to blow up my house. That would be bad. I'll tell you about that story later, okay? Until later, catch some love. I think I got to go quickly. I hear Regan and Brecken going insane. Yikes. Catch some pride. Okay? Super teacher, out.